Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the online conference on youth and democracy. My name is Diana, and we are hosting you in this online stream. Our organization is called Youth for Equality, and we are happy to have you here. Please stay with us. I'm going to introduce the program and the speakers even more, so please follow us. So once again, good morning, everyone. Welcome here in our office of Youth for Equality. My name is Diana, and I'm the president of the organization. We are a partner of this amazing project, EU DemocrAID, which is coordinated by the Italian organization UNET. We have the representatives here. I will shortly introduce the program, and then we will move on with the topic. So, we will start with the speech of Milena, who is the representative of UNET. She will talk more about the project, about the program which funded the project Youth DemocrAID. And then we will move on to the panel discussion. We have really interesting and amazing speakers here. We have Nadia Novakova from the Office of the European Parliament. We have Denisa Karabova from European Dialogue, and our colleague from Youth for Equality, Mario Vrabel, who will have the role of the moderator, but also a speaker representing active youth in this project. Thank you so much for this time, and I would like to give a stage right now to Milena from UNET organization to say something more about the project and the project partners and the aims of the project.
Thank you. Thank you, Diana, for this welcome. I'm Milena from UNET, the organization in Italy, and today we are meeting because of the Youth DemocrAID project. And Youth DemocrAID project was founded by the Citizens, Equality, Rights and Values program with the funds of the European Union. And the objectives of this program are to protect and promote the rights and values as enshrined in the EU Treaties and the Charter of the Fundamental Rights. And in particular, the program is doing that by supporting the civil society organizations that are active at local, regional, national and transnational levels. We can go to another slide. The program is based on 4 strands: equality, rights and gender equality, that is promoting the rights, non-discrimination, equality, including the gender equality. Then another strand is citizens' engagement and participation, that is promoting the citizens' engagement and participation in democratic life of the European Union and the exchange between the citizens of different member states. Another strand that we have in the program are Daphne for fight against the violence, including the gender-based violence, and union values that are protecting and promoting the union values. The Youth DemocrAID project is under the strand of citizens' engagement and participation. Our goals are to promote the youth engagement. We want to encourage the active participation of the young people from the partner countries and beyond in discussions and activities related to democracy, citizenship, and the future of Europe. We want to empower young people with the knowledge and skills, confidence to actively participate in the decision-making processes on the local, national, and European levels. We want to promote the European identity through the activities that the partnership is doing to cultivate a sense of belonging to the European project. Our aim is also to enhance citizenship education by developing and implementing workshops in the thematic of the citizenship education that we will implement in the future in the project in the schools and among the young people in the partner countries. And one of our last goals is to strengthen the democratic values, last but not least. We want to foster a deeper understanding of democratic principles, values and practices. So the Youth DemocrAID is working on the methods based on the non-formal education and active participation. We will create some workshops, debates, video interviews, World Cafes, gamification activities to engage young people in the topic of active citizenship. The partner countries in the Youth DemocrAID projects are Italy, Poland, Slovakia, Greece, Portugal, and in this moment I would like to welcome all of our other partners. Thank you for hosting the event to Youth for Equality from Slovakia. Welcome Citizen Crossroads from Greece. Welcome also Glowni from Portugal, and our partner from Poland, Cluster for Innovative Societies. The project will last 24 months. We are just at the beginning of the project. So this is the very first event that we are hosting in the project. We encourage you to follow our social media. We have Facebook, we have website. We will be publishing there all of the materials, all of the events that are happening in our countries. There will be a lot of workshops, seminars, including the International Youth Debate Seminar in Poland. So that's it from me. I'm passing the microphone to our speakers. Thank you very much, and I hope you will enjoy today's debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to welcome you to this debate. I would like to also welcome our beautiful guest. On my left is Nadia Novakova, works as a youth correspondent in the European Parliament, office in Slovakia, and coordinates youth programs of the European Parliament, such as Ambassador Schools, Euroschool, and European Shaman Youth Prize. And from on the left again, Denisa Karapova is the chairwoman of European Dialogue, a civic association dedicated to promoting active citizenship, professional media and art quality, youth work and media literacy, both in Slovakia and internationally. Okay, so the first main topic, also I would like to introduce myself. My name is Mario Rabel. I work here as a volunteer in Youth for Equality, and I'm also a young active person here in Trnava. I study political science and I organize debates in my university with politicians and active people of Slovak public space. Okay, so the first main topic and the first main question of our discussion is why voting matters in European democracies and what is the importance of voting in maintaining a healthy democracy. So you can start from the left.
Thank you very much. Yeah, let's talk about voting. It's one of the crucial pillars of the democracy, all of the democracies, I would say. So without free voting for everyone, like the right to vote in all the elections, we couldn't have democracy. So I would say it's so crucial, but on the other side, it also comes with responsibility because you cannot really vote. You can vote, of course, but you should not be really voting if you don't vote correctly, let's say, what is right for your democracy and for your country if your vote is not based on the right information, I would say. So voting right is also coming with a really big responsibility, which we are forgetting about. It also goes to the media literacy, which I think we are missing in most of the countries. It's not just the problem of Slovak Republic. I think most of the Europe, most of the world, even the United States, where democracy was kind of created, the modern democracy, it's really facing a lot of challenges when it comes to this very manipulated society that really believes in misinformation. But when it comes to voting, really we cannot give up on this, and we really should try. I think also us as a non-government organization, as ordinary people, to really try to change these trends and to educate also our to not become a victim of misinformation. So I would say this is crucial. That voting, it's very, very important. And unfortunately, when you have all these current trends, you see like so many people are not really voting that much as they could. I think the last parliamentary election in Slovakia, the turnout was around 58, if I'm not mistaken. When it comes to European election, of course, it was the best out of all of the European elections what we've ever had. It was 34, I think, in Slovakia, which is still like so many people. They just stayed home and they didn't use their right to vote. So what happens that those people stay at home, they are not represented in their parliaments, either national, local, or European parliaments, which is really, really sad because it creates this they are not really feel represented, so they don't relate to politics at the end, I would say. So you really need to vote in order to elect there some people who represent the values and the opinions that you relate to. And if you just stay home and you don't vote, what democracy we will have? So I think it's super important to just don't give up on this and try to work, especially with young people, on this, because young people, they don't feel represented at all, and their interest in politics is very, very, very low.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I would say democracy is very fragile. We can't take for granted that it will always be here. Especially in Slovakia, it's only a matter of a couple of tens of years, and we didn't have democracy and people couldn't vote freely. And our forefathers and the people before us, they had to pay a huge price for us to be living in a democracy and to vote freely. Just recently there was an excellent movie in Slovakia called Vlny, Waves. If you haven't seen it, it's actually, I think it's going to be nominated for an Oscar, so if you haven't seen it, go see it. It's really an excellent showing of how much people had to fight for democracy in our country and here in Central Europe. And we sort of now take it for granted and think that, well, I don't have to do anything about it, and it's just always going to be here, and I'll always be living in a free world, and it's absolutely not true. It can change in a matter of days or hours. And so, yes, it comes with responsibilities. It's not only living in a free world and having all the amenities and all the advantages, but it's also doing something about it. And voting is the least that we can do. And me personally, I think everybody should go vote. In every election there is. Of course, it's not always, you're not always able to choose the ideal candidate or the ideal political party, and that's not what the elections are about. Before the European elections, one politician used a very good example that the elections are not a taxi that gets you exactly to the point where you want to go. They're rather like a bus or a tram that they get you near to where you are trying to get, and that's what we are trying, that's what you should be trying to do. So not find the perfect ideal candidate that suits all your fancies, but always try to choose somebody who represents at least your way of thinking, your values, and your way of life. And there are countries in the EU where voting is mandatory. So if you don't show up for elections, and I think we have people from Greece, and I've heard that it's actually mandatory there, or more or less.
Yes, but not in the
it's the same. I spent about 10 years in Belgium. I worked in Belgium for the European Parliament, and their voting is mandatory. If you don't show up, you can get a fee of about 50 or 75 euros. Usually people say that it's not enforced, so if you don't show up, you don't actually get the fee. But it has been a means of getting people to go to vote. So now people don't get the fine, but they do show up, and they have a percentage of, they have a turnout of, 90%, 95%. So maybe it has taught them a lesson, taught the people of Belgium a lesson, that voting is something they have to make time for. So it's not an excuse that, oh, the weather is nice and I want to go somewhere and just forget about voting. So maybe it's something, it's absolutely for discussion. And when I discuss this with students, I always get somebody that says, yeah, but should we really force people who don't want to vote? Should we really force them to go vote? Because then maybe they can vote in protest and they can choose somebody we don't want there. So shouldn't we only let people who are absolutely certain and who have done their job and who know who they want to vote for? So it's absolutely up for discussion, but I think personally, democracy comes with responsibilities, and one of them is turning up at every election there is. So yeah, that's for me, voting is very important, and it's really a cornerstone of democracy. You can't have democracy without doing your part in the process.
Yes, thank you. I will also add that voting is also, I think it should be mandatory, actually, in my humble opinion, but yes, about the protest voting, like people can vote, for example, parties that are as protest. It happened in 2016 in Slovakia, actually, where a lot of young people were voting far-right political party, and it wasn't very nice here after that. And I think that's the start where, like, Slovakia started to divide. But I won't go into that part. I will also add that voting and overall, when there's elections, it's not just about voting. It's also what comes after and how the community and society evolves after that. And I think that elections are very, very important, especially not just the parliamentary elections, but also for European Parliament, for municipalities. Because we as a society, we evolve from the bottom. So when we start on small communities, like municipality, and where like mayors and small city parliaments, that's how we evolve from that. And that was also how I want to bridge to the next question, like, what is the importance of elections in the countries and European Parliament elections? What is the more important part for you, the country or the European Parliament, when we are talking about Europe as a whole?
If I may, just one thing that Denisa said that I would like to stress, that voting shouldn't be done just on the day of the elections, that you just choose randomly a candidate, and that you have to do your homework and have to really see what's on the offer and what works for you. And I think that's where education comes in, and that's where we should, and we don't do that, and we should educate young people from the very beginning. And in the civilized world, children get civic education and political education as young as really kindergarten or the first years of school, because you can already start to teach them about the society, how it works, how politics works, that it's not a dirty word. So I think this is where we have a big lapse in Slovakia, and where we should absolutely do a lot of work. And this is where usually a lot of NGOs and youth organizations come in, because they supplement the work of the state and the state school system. And now to the European elections and the country elections. I think every election is important, and the municipal ones may be even more important to your everyday life than the national elections, actually, because that's where you get to choose candidates who really work for your municipality, for your city. And I think here in Trnava you can see a lot that if you have good leadership in a city, or we see that it's in Bratislava now, if you have good leadership, a lot can be done that can make your life a lot easier on a very basic everyday level. But the European elections are a bit of a problem, because we tend to see them as something foreign, as something far away that's happening in Brussels. And also in the Slovak media, if you want to address an issue that is decided on the EU level, you speak to the foreign correspondent, because that's who writes about the EU. And that's something that we should change completely. And we should realize that it's really the domestic affairs, the European affairs are the domestic affairs, not the foreign affairs for us. And so we get this a lot when we ask why people don't vote in the European elections in Slovakia. Denisa said recent elections in June this year, we had 34% turnout, and we were celebrating, and we were like popping champagne because that was the best result by far that we got in European elections. 10 years ago, it was 13%. You can imagine, every one person that cast their vote decided for 9 others who would be representing them in the European Parliament. It's ridiculous. And so now we have 34%, and we are really happy about it, but it's still 1/3 of the population that actually showed up. And it's because they think it's something very far and very distant, and well, some politicians go to Brussels and they do something there, and you know. What is decided on the EU level has a much bigger impact on your everyday life than what the national politicians choose in the Slovak Parliament, let's say. We counted the number of laws that the Slovak Parliament approved last year. Out of them, more than 50% were simply transposed from the European directives and the European laws. So basically, more than half of what the national parliament does is simply taking and copy-pasting what the European Parliament decided into the national legislation. We just did that roughly with a couple of interns. We counted by hand all the laws. In Germany, they had a study done a couple of years ago, and they discovered 75% of their national legislation actually came from the EU. So if you take this logic, it makes much bigger sense to vote in the European elections than to vote in the national elections. I'm saying both of them are important, but the European elections are much more important than you think. So that's.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of my colleagues, and I have to say and stress out what was already said, like the municipal and the local level of politics is so important and it's so overlooked. It's being so overlooked for a very long time. I would start with, I think at least in our region, in Central Eastern Europe, with post-communist countries, we kind of inherited this lack of interest into participation in general. We were never, our parents, our grandparents, they were never allowed to be interested in politics, to care about public affairs, and it also came with lack of interest, who is doing what, because they were forced, okay, you are going to vote for the communists, and that's it, there is no other options. And I think this kind of, a sense for a lack of participation, lack of interest, it's still here also with the young generation. I think it's a bit different story with the young generation. We will, I guess, get to youngsters, but I would like to stress out that local elections, municipalities, it's so important, and the turnout there is usually the lowest one. And the participation and your sense of building the community should start in the local communities, in the towns and the cities where you live, and to care about the politicians there, to elect there the people who really care about your city, about your village, wherever you live, because of course it means a lot, and we don't realize there are candidates, but we don't care about who is running for the local parliament, and it's super important because they have such a power to decide on what is happening in your city, about the infrastructure, about green policies, etc. I think Slovakia and Bratislava, I just said, is one of the good examples of Slovak cities, because we are very progressive towns, and there is lots of things happening in green transportation and in jobs, and people are trying to people in power here in the cities. They are really they care about the cities, and it's visible. And if you don't really participate at the local level, and we have never been led to that by any kind of let's say teachers. I'm speaking on my behalf. Maybe it's a bit changing nowadays. I'm not a student anymore, but we were never led to be be active, to be involved in some decision-making process in the schools, etc. Now we have like participatory budgeting, etc. But it's still not very visible. People are not really interested in gathering in the communities about I don't know. It can be just your neighborhood where you just do some workshops, do some activities. It starts like that, and of course voting comes with it because you care about your community. So I would say it's super important and it's being overlooked. But as was also said, the national and European elections are super important. Unfortunately, European elections, they don't have such interest of the people, even though it's so important, as was said. We are part of the European Union and we are not proud of that. This is what makes me so sad. We don't understand what the European Union means, what the project actually is, what is the history, what are the values. There are so many countries out of the European Union who would like to get involved, and they will maybe never get involved. They will never be the members. And we are members of this privileged group of European countries with so many opportunities given to people, given to youngsters to go studying abroad, to work abroad, to to live in democracy, which is not granted, and we just don't appreciate it enough. And it also comes with the turnout in the European elections. People think, it's Brussels, it's directive of Brussels, even though of course they've been manipulated by national politicians who are not saying the truth about what is actually European politics and European law about. It's just to make Europe a better place to live and more fair place to live. And in fact, there are our politicians, our government representatives and people who we voted for in the European elections who vote for these European laws. And this is not communicated enough. So it's just Brussels decided on that. It's not like that. We actually took part in deciding on that, and it's super important. So I think national elections, of course, is important. I think most of the people think it's the most important election, but European election is as important as national elections as well, I would say.
And I think what happens then is that more and more people get elected into the European Parliament who are actually against the EU, who are trying to sort of destroy it from within. So we have MEPs who we send there, but they are not trying to see, okay, I'm not saying the EU is a perfect thing by no means. But we should try to be represented by people who are trying to make it better, and not by people who just go there and make videos for their social networks, saying how ridiculous it is, how it doesn't work, and how we should all just abolish it. Because I don't think we have something better in plan, and I think it's a great it's a great thing that we should really try to make a part of Europe, a part of our lives, and not try to destroy it. So that's also something that you do by voting. You choose the people who will be there and who will either enhance it or make it worse. So.
Yes, thank you. I completely agree with both of you, especially in that part, especially older generations say that's somebody EU thought about and we have to now do it. It's no, we have the power to actually elect people into the Brussels and the European Parliament, and we also have that power to actually change things, not only in Slovakia, but thanks for us being in EU, we also have power to change the entire continent, the entire European Union. And I think that especially the older generation are not educated on the European Parliament, the votes and the elections, and that's why we see such a low number of people voting. And I would also add that now, as more younger generations come into schools as teachers, we also have these students' elections for not just European Parliament, but Slovakian Parliament as well. And I think it's a great way to educate younger generations to go vote. You have your voice. People want to hear it as well. Some people don't, some people do, but you have your voice, you have your vote, and it's good to go to the elections and vote. And this is also next part of my question is the popularity of elections and how the youth is actually getting more involved in voting and in elections, and what's the basically difference between the older generation and the younger generation? Why is there such a big difference? So that's my next question.
Yeah, this is a very good question, and this is actually what makes me very sad when it comes to voting and the quality of democracy. It's like, it's cliche, like our future is in the youth, but it's true. And when young people, they are not interested in politics and they don't take part in the elections, what will happen? Like, what is waiting for us? What kind of future? I think it's very sad, and also Slovak results from the recent history showed us like how young people just they feel distrust for politicians and politics in general. There was this public opinion poll done in 2023 before our national elections that happened last year. And there was a campaign that was called Chcę tu zostać, I want to stay here, and it was actually based on the public opinion poll. They got the results, and the result was like the young generation. Let's talk about people up to 25. I think it was the sample. They are generally pro-democratic. They are pro-European because they were already mostly born in the European Union, or they remember like their childhood already being the part of the European Union. Slovak joined in 2004, and yes, they are pro-European. They are mostly liberal. They are pro-democratic, but on the other side, they don't trust politicians. They don't care about the politics. So this was the result, and they focused their campaign on making them going to vote, right? Because they were expecting, like, if they go to vote, they will probably vote not the radical extremist parties. So I have a faith, like we can change this, and young people can actually change the direction of our country and also maybe your countries, because it's so obvious that they would vote not to actually exit from the European Union. They vote for pro-democratic countries. So, parties, pardon. So, generally, this trend, I think, is visible everywhere, not just in Slovak Republic. Like, young people, they feel not represented. They feel like their voice is not heard, whatever they think. Like, politicians, they don't reflect on their needs. Nobody is asking them, and if they ask, they are not reflecting on what was the result of any kind of debate or whatever. So they are not left to be active by politicians. It should be like coming from up, from government, from like education. Nobody is leading them enough, let's say. Of course, we are trying, maybe NGOs and also some institutions, also some like teachers, of course. Like not everyone is like not doing their job in this, but it's not enough, I would say. And we have to really work hard on like making people be interested in politics and do some maybe more decisions, pass some new laws in order to like make the participation not just in elections but generally for people like more accessible, like more free and more enjoyable, let's say, because for them it's like, okay, whatever we vote for, like nothing is gonna change, and they are the same people just having different kind of labels of the parties, but they don't care about that, whatever if it's right or left, centrist party. So yeah, young people, they feel this disconnection from politics, and older generation, I can follow on this. It's like it's similar, but they are not really. Some of them are not really democratic. They don't have a democratic values, very strong ones, I would say. Many of them are victims of manipulation, of hybrid war, of different kind of conspiracy theories. Of course, also young generation is a victim of that. But I would say, like what I observed is like mostly older generation, because they were not actually prepared to appear on social media one day, and it suddenly happened, and everyone is there, and like it's it's very dangerous. Like on one side, it's a platform for free discussion, but on the other side, it became like a weapon for the democracies. So we have to work very, very hard in order to change these directions where we are going. At the moment, Slovakia is in very, very bad conditions, at least in my opinion. I'm really sad about it. It's not just about participation, it's like general kind of like a polarization of society. People became enemies to each other, even families are divided. So I would say it's not that bad. I can see like a bright future. I don't want to end this like with a negative opinion. I think there is a very, very high chance, like at some point, maybe it will take a couple of more years, but I think like it can change. But we have to work hard in order to make the ground for young people to be interested in politics and participation.
Yeah, just to put it into numbers, we still don't have the numbers for the last European elections, but in the previous ones, where the turnout for all of Europe was 50+%, 50-something%, and for voters 18 to 24, it was about 42%. So 42% of young people showed up to vote on average, throughout the EU. For Slovakia, it was 10%. So if you can imagine, out of 10 young people, 9 stayed at home and 1 went to vote, which is a bit tragic. What we have been told when we ask young people why they are not interested, I think it boils down to education. We don't educate them. At secondary school level, you have 2 hours of civic education on European Union in Slovakia throughout 4 years. In elementary schools, it's not even that. EU is just maybe mentioned somewhere at one point where a teacher wants to, or maybe they visit some European center at one point. But basically, it's not in the syllabus. They are not taught. Not only about European Union, but also about national level politics. So they don't know what elections mean, how the country works even. We have secondary school students coming to us, and we give them presentations and workshops on the EU. And oftentimes, secondary school students, I'm talking about 15, 16, 17-year-olds, they don't know the difference between the national parliament and the government. So, and that's on us, that's on the education, because they are not going to go and try to find the answer themselves. We have to offer them to them. So education is, I think, a big point. And the second thing that we keep hearing is that they don't feel heard. They think the issues that the politicians deal with do not represent them. And one way to do that would be to bring young politicians into the parties, where the young people would feel that they are actually being represented by somebody their age. And this is where I think you come in, and I don't mean to be politicians and become politicians and go get elected, but I mean by actually asking the parties, asking the politicians, do you have somebody young in your party who is on an eligible place in the list? Because I was just looking at the numbers of the newly elected European Parliament, and guess what? The average age of an MEP, of a member of European Parliament, can you guess?
30.
30? Anybody much higher?
60.
50. Out of 750 MEPs, the average age is 50. When we talk about young politicians, we generally use the age up to 35. In the European Parliament, and I can bring up the statistics, I don't know them by heart, but there are more than 10 countries who have 0 MEPs under the age of 35. Slovakia has 20%, which is great because I think we have elected this time some young politicians. Just before the European elections, we had a debate with the Alliance of Secondary Schools, who wanted to make a political debate with young candidates on the political parties list. So we took I think the 6 most likely to be elected political parties, and we found the youngest candidate on each list. When you saw the panel, more than half of them were my age, which is 40 plus, which is not a young politician. I wouldn't consider myself in any category as a young person. How can we change this? How can we get more young people into politics, into active politics, so that they can represent the youngsters? And I think one way to do that is really to constantly bug the political parties and ask them, okay, what is the average age? How many young people do you have? How many people under 35 that are actually eligible? Because you can put them on a number 130, but how many people are there in the top 10, top 20, And this is something that you have to do, because otherwise you will not be represented. Because I'm sorry, somebody who is 50 is not going to know what it's like to be 16 or 18. So I think that's up to you. And a second big issue that we have been dealing with is that several countries have now lowered the age where you can go vote from 18 to 16, or in the case of Greece, 17. So now in the European elections, we had 4 countries where young people as of 16 could go vote. And it seems that it has helped with the turnout. So there were more people who showed up, because the young people are more, let's say, the younger they are, the more likely they are to make a habit out of voting. So 18 is maybe already too old. So if you start at 16, the chances are that you will become a more permanent voter throughout your life. So this is something also that we would like to open more frequently in Slovakia, should we lower the voting age. But then with that comes a huge responsibility, and when I talk to students who come to us for presentations or for workshops, oftentimes more than half of the group says, no, let's not do that, because we are absolutely not ready to vote at 16. We have no idea who we would vote for. It's a huge responsibility. We don't want it. Keep it at the age of 18, because when you're an adult, you sort of, it's more likely that you will know who to vote for. So and that goes back again to the education. So if young people were more educated, they would feel more secure in deciding who to vote for. So maybe that's also something you could tell me, if you would like for people 16 plus to be able to vote, or if you think it's not realistic in Slovakia, in your country, wherever.
I would say that voting in 16 is a bit soon, especially for young people, since it's like teenage years, and people that age are very impulsive in voting. And I always joke that the average length of voter in Slovakia in terms of memory is 3 days. So if something happens past then, they don't remember. And that's how politicians that are very populist are always in power. And since younger people, as I said, are very impulsive, I don't think it's that good idea. I would rather put more pressure into the education system to actually teach them about voting and our overall elections. And as I said, I completely agree, only on the number of years. I'm not very sure about that. Somebody younger, and yes, young people are not heard, I think, in my opinion. And only way we can be heard are that we go to vote. And also I would add that about the parties, as somebody that we vote some kind of a party, we aren't supposed to be like blindly following everything they do. We should also be critical, even about the same party we vote. And I think that's the problem here. Like, people that hold one kind of a party, they will always stand by their decisions, even though they don't agree with them, but they are just maybe ashamed that they thought about voting that party. I don't know, but I think we should be critical. And when we are critical, things can change. And that's what I think. Also, I think we should have a break. The time is already up. So, yes.
Can I just say something to lowering the voting age about you saying it's impulsive? So I'm actually from Austria, and we have like 3 years now from 16. And I think it's actually not like, I think the people who are impulsive, they're not gonna go vote in the first place. And I just personal experience, I just experienced that we have, like also not like in our curriculum, of course, civil education, but I do think we talk about it more, because when we are close to 16, that the teachers do say, oh well, we have elections, just gonna go over it real fast. And they're also preparing us, like, as you said, we developed this permanent voting habit way more intensively. So I do think of course, I do think the effects are to be seen in like a couple of years. It's not gonna be like, oh, we changed it now, so all the 16-year-olds gonna vote. Of course, people will say we're not ready because this is the generation who wasn't prepared to vote at 16. But if you grow up with the mindset, oh, when I'm 16, I can vote and I have this responsibility, then I think your behavior is also totally different. So I'm actually all in for it, but obviously I grew up with this. So.
How long have you had it in Austria?
I think it was like 2010-ish.
Oh wow, okay, so that's long.
Yeah.
And in Greece you have 17 plus?
Yes, but
It's fresh, it's just out. I think what you said about the impulsiveness, I think it actually, the majority of voters are actually, they vote on impulse, so it's the majority of voters are not studying the programs of the political parties. They just, I have some of my friends, I work in politics, and I have some of my friends who say the morning of the election they just randomly decided and they voted for a party nobody ever heard of, and they think it's fun to cast just a random vote to some, I don't know, the heart of retired people or whatever the name of the party is, and they just, you will always have those people, and I think they are the majority. They don't really think about it thoroughly and make a very good decision based on a lot of studying. So it doesn't really necessarily have to do with age. So.
Thank you. I also heard those stories that people just wake up and vote what party they will vote that day. So thank you very much.
Sometimes even in the voting room, they just randomly go over the list.
Yes, it can be seen. Thank you. I propose a break for 10 minutes, and then we'll continue with the debate. Thank you. Okay, so the first part of our debate ended. We were talking mostly about voting processes and the elections in not just in Slovakia but entire Europe, European Parliament election, and etc. We heard great opinions, and I'm very happy that this discussion can continue after this break. And now we will resume the panel discussion, and the next topic will be the freedom of speech as a cornerstone of democracy. Thank you. Okay, I guess we can start the next part, and the next topic of this panel discussion is the freedom of speech as a cornerstone of democracy in Europe, and how the freedom to express opinion is essential for democracy in Europe, and why protecting this right is crucial. So, what do you think about freedom of speech as a cornerstone of Europe?
Well, it definitely is a cornerstone of the democracies. Without the freedom of speech, we wouldn't be able to question even like the politician to express our opinion, and like it even like gave the pluralism to be born some centuries ago. So like the whole democracy is more or less based on the freedom of speech, and without it, like we cannot have a democracy. But on the other side, I would say we have to approach it very, very responsibly, and it's not very maybe attractive opinion, but I think it should not be limitless in a way, because if we are not responsible, it's coming back to like being informed citizen, which is what is like utopia of democracy, to have just well-informed citizens who like do like very well-informed decisions based on the fact and not disinformation and conspiracies. So well, if it's not like that, okay, closer. I would say like I'm just doing a lot of movement with my hands, so I will try to focus. So yeah, we should definitely be more responsible when it comes to our using our rights of the freedom of speech, because we should not be talking about some misinformation, about spreading some conspiracy theories, because like on one hand it's essential and we should protect definitely the freedom of speech and we cannot give up on that. But we have to somehow limit it in a way. We cannot spread hatred on the internet, like especially with the digital age and like social media are now so like widespread and everyone is using them. Like maybe some, let's say 10 years ago, like of course we were already on social media, but not everyone. Maybe not our parents were on Facebook or like other social media. But it suddenly happened, like it's so accessible, everyone has Wi-Fi, everyone has data on phone everywhere, and everyone is there, and like they feel like they have a freedom of speech and they can express everything without any kind of like limits and boundaries. And it should not be like that, because what happens when it is not somehow limited, we face like this polarization of society is a like result of that, and it can kind of threaten the people. It like makes people feel like very sad. Like there's a lot of people suffering from mental health, like when they see like what is happening out there on the internet, and like there are people who are constantly attacking them, like different minorities, different people with different backgrounds, just because they are the way they are, and this should not be happening. So I think it's not very popular. Maybe in the US they are like more fan of like limitless freedom of speech, but in Europe I'm really happy for that. Like we are trying to limit it, and the European Union as well. I think maybe Nadia can share a bit more about the digital European Act, that the European Union is already doing something in order to protect citizens from like hatred being spread on the internet and different kind of conspiracy theories and things that are actually threatening democracy, because like it's very important, freedom of speech, but on the other side it can be used as a weapon to destabilize the democracy, the whole European Union. It's very, very dangerous, and I think like
all of us should be really taking this responsibility, and we should be really not talking everything, the first thing we have in mind, without really fact-checking the things, especially if it's like some very, very important piece of news that we start to share, and then people will share, because it's so easy, and I think all of you can follow on this and agree that some untrue, some fact that is not based on truth can be spread like so easily. And when somebody debunks it, which takes time, of course, to explain people like why this is not true. So these kind of articles or news that are debunking some conspiracy theories, whatever kind of misinformation, it's not that widely spread as a misinformation. So it's like wow effect, like oh my god, like they are lying to us, and like they are trying to mislead us, the politicians, the European Union. It's so easy to spread such kind of information. So I would say freedom of speech should have some kind of boundaries, because otherwise we will end up like very badly. And on the other side, it goes hand in hand with the media literacy. The level of media literacy in Slovakia, and especially I can talk about Slovakia, it's like very low. I think in Europe it's a bit better, maybe in Western countries, but maybe you can also share your experiences, how it is in your countries. But I think most of the countries of the EU are suffering from that. We are like a constant target of the hybrid war, so people are being manipulated constantly in public spaces, especially in social media, different kind of social media, including Facebook, but also others. So I think this is the key for the better future in this, to the depolarized society, and try to make it better, because when there is no limits, and we are so easily to be manipulated, and then it really affects the quality of democracy, the quality of everyday living of the people.
Yes, absolutely. I think this is a problem that is very recent. I think the freedom of speech in Europe, correct me if you think differently, but I think we have freedom of speech and we are able to express ourselves. But what is becoming a bigger problem is where do we limit this freedom of speech? Especially when you share, or when you say, well, this is my opinion, that I think the earth is flat. I mean, where do we actually stop listening to facts and start listening to opinions? And oftentimes these opinions are more, let's say, likable, or more engaging. So we actually we listen to different conspiracy theories, like Denisa said. These are often a matter of hybrid attacks that are actually not specific to Slovakia. Before the European elections, we had several conspiracy theories, and when we compared, we discovered they were exactly the same in several countries of the Central Europe. So let's say in Slovenia, they had exactly the same theory about bring your own pen to the voting station, because they have erasable pens, and if you use their pen, they will erase it and write something different. And then we were checking it, and these same were actually in different other countries, or even with one politician where there was a rumor he did something, and the same rumor was about a different politician in Slovenia or in Poland. So it's something that comes really from another country, which let's leave it at that. So it's that's really something that we have to focus much more on these days. It's really media literacy, and for people to understand what they are reading, to read it, and to actually think about what they are sharing and what they are doing on social media. For the European Parliament, we have recently adopted two very important pieces of legislation, the previous Parliament before the elections. In May, we adopted the Media Freedom Act, which sets rules to protect the media, to protect, let's say, their sources, to protect them from attacks, from from, let's say, their funds being withdrawn because they write something the current political party which rules is not okay with. So this is a very important piece of legislation. We feel that can help a lot with the freedom of speech in Europe and with the ability of Europe's citizens to get information of high quality, and not only from different sources where you don't really know who's behind it or who came up with it, so from actual media. And the second piece of information is the Digital Services Act, as Denisa mentioned. And that's, it's funny because European Union, it's often said how it's slow and it doesn't react as well as it should, etc. But there are instances where we are actually an inspiration to the whole world. And this is one of them. So even people in the US, they are inspired by what the European Union is doing in case of this Digital Services Act. It's a regulation that is supposed to help regulate social media and is protecting the users of social media so that you don't get untruths, or so that you don't get hate speech, or so that you don't get you don't have comments that are that don't follow rules, etc. So this is something that the European Union is trying to help its citizens, because really nowadays social media is just a very dark place where you can where a lot of things are happening which are mostly mostly they're okay, and mostly you live in your social media bubble, but then you can get into a bubble, especially the older people who don't really know how it works. They get into a bubble where they are constantly fed some sort of theories and lies, and it's dangerous. It's a dangerous place, and so the European Union is trying to set some rules that the providers of these social media would have to follow, and they would have to fact check, and they would have to delete comments that let's say don't respect the rules. So yeah, that's I think as well we especially have to focus on where the limits are for the freedom of speech at the moment, because I think we live in a democracy where freedom of speech is respected, but sometimes people tend to abuse it.
Thank you, I agree as well. And the freedom of speech is something very important for everybody in Europe. And I would say that it should be a bit limited, because everybody says in politics are very hard and complicated, but if you think about it, the same things happen on very smaller scales. Like people who, for example, your children starts to lie about something and you punish him for it. You cannot lie. And now in politics, when you spread misinformation, people forget and they don't punish you for that. Especially in Slovakia, when during COVID, people spread misinformation about vaccines. Don't take the vaccine, you will die in 3 days. I'm still here. I don't know if I'm some kind of a exception, but and people forget in 3 days. Oh, he didn't say that, and then next misinformation comes up, and nobody gets punished for that. And I think that's the big problem. And also during or after these elections for parliament in Slovakia, Slovakia is very divided, and the government came up with this slogan about respect others' opinions, because since Slovakia is so divided. But I don't think if a lie is an opinion, I don't think I should respect it. And this is why I want to also come to another question, is that how freedom of speech is actually in danger of opinions becoming a fact, and that facts are spread. So how dangerous is that for European Union and other countries as well?
Well, the EU has been fighting that ever since its beginnings, I think, because you constantly have these fake news about, maybe you're too young to remember, but there are all these news stories about how the EU wants cucumbers to be bent in a certain angle, otherwise they could not be sold. And these were all untruths that we tried to debunk, but again, the untruth is so popular and so funny and so spreadable that it spreads much more easily than the actual truth. So if we said no, that's not what we are about, it's not about the angle of the cucumber, it's actually about something else. Oftentimes it will be spread, and I'm sure you know this because I'm sure you've already had some media literacy classes or seminars, but if you spread something and 1,000 people spread it, and then you actually say, no, it was wrong, I'm sorry, this is the correction, then 10 people spread it. And same goes about everything. I mean, you spread everything, but then you discover, oh, it wasn't true, but you don't actually go and publish, I'm sorry, what I published was not true, because then it would also make you look bad because you believed something. So you just tend to forget it and say, okay, well, that was a week ago and people already probably forgot what I wrote, so I won't be going into that again. So the EU has been doing this ever since the beginning, because there have been ridiculous stories ever since the beginning. And but what I think, I'm not sure, because I would like to check with other countries where, let's say, democracy is more stable and more older and wiser, because we are a very young, fresh democracy, and we sometimes have to fight with things that in the countries in the Western Europe, they have already dealt with that a couple of years ago, and now they have gone through it. But we tend to, and maybe this is something also to do with our history, we tend to not believe official sources, because we lived for 50 years in an establishment where we were constantly lied to, and where we had censure and you couldn't express yourself really, and what you read in the newspapers wasn't necessarily what was really happening. And so I think what we still have is this mentality of they are lying to us. Let's read between the lines. Let's find the real truth behind it. And I think we are really still attracted to that, and we still want to be investigators, and then somebody comes with theory and says, well, it's not what they're telling you, it's actually this, because they want you to believe this. And we're like, oh yes, I'm so clever, I found out what it's all about. So I'm not sure. I think this is something especially Central Europe is fighting with, because I think when we compared with other colleagues from, Belgium or France, they were much less prone to believing these things, but Slovakia is very much, unfortunately, still attracted to finding out the real truth and not believing what you are hearing up front, because obviously that can be true. They are just trying to hide something. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We are one of the worst. If not worse, then Bulgaria is the worst. We are competing for the last place. So definitely our people are really tending to believe it's in misinformation. It goes again to media literacy and a lack of media literacy. And what I would like to stress out regarding this lying and misusing the freedom of speech is mostly misusing it by the politicians. And this is like very, very, very dangerous practice, because they are lying to us every day. It became like a practice of politics, because well, they are hiding behind this freedom of speech, like they can have opinion, as Mario said, like this is my opinion, even though if it's not true, and they definitely know they are lying to you because they just want to gain some votes, they just want to gain power to be ruling this country. Not everyone, of course, but many, many, many of them, especially some radical movements, some like very populist, a lot of populists in Europe, they just misusing the information that they know the information is not true, and they just just wanna mislead the opinion of people. I just want to get their votes. So I can maybe give you an example. I was doing research like years ago. It was like back to 2018 when the CERV political party was ruling party, and I was doing interview with one of the representatives of CERV, Slovak political party. I don't want to name anyone. I don't want to make this kind of very party-oriented discussion. But the thing is, many politicians do so. They rapidly changed the discourse they had towards the migration crisis. They were not like that before, and nothing like that was written in their political program, right? And when I questioned them, why you actually changed and you started to blame poor migrants to come, not just migrants, economic migrants, but refugees. They were not accepting them. They were threatening people on public, on TV. This is they are going to, I don't know, steal our women and steal our jobs, and they are a big threat for our country. In fact, it's completely opposite, because we need migrants. Our economy is suffering. We will need more people to work in Slovakia. Anyways, I asked why. And they said, okay, we saw the polls, what is the general opinion of our voters on this, and we reflected on that, and that's why we changed the strategy in our political communication, and we are now against the migration. So it's simple like that. They just do whatever it is in favor of the current situation in order to gain votes, and this is the most threatening for all of the democracies in all of the systems. When politicians are not reflecting on real needs of the country and people, and they are just really misusing misinformation in their favor. So I think if it's not gonna change, if we are not going to change this, or the politics is not going to change, I think we are in danger. So, pardon, this is what makes me really sad, seeing misinformation spread and disinformation spread by the public figure, because they should be those role models, those who say okay, let's calm down, this is not true, the European Union is not doing wrong thing, this is actually in favor of your needs or something, that they are totally lying to us. And of course, when you repeat some lie often and many times, it became a truth for people. So of course then people are, many of them are not educated, they are not fact-checking, they don't have a media literacy, they are just it happened here on social media, and they read what their favorite politicians write on the Facebook or wherever, and of course they think it's true. I heard also some stories some not maybe just older generation, I don't want to blame just them, but some older lady was said oh, but it was written on the internet, so it has to be true, right? So if we have a attitude like that, our parents, our colleagues, whoever living in our country think like that, I don't know what we are going to be in our country like. So yeah, this is threatening definitely our democracy, the European Union, the local level of politics, all of the local politics. So I'm really sorry it's like that, and I think we should not give up on that and try to educate people to raise the level of media literacy, to raise the level of their information and participation in politics and in public sphere in general.
And I think also what comes in is AI, because all of a sudden you get videos of people saying things they've never said, and oftentimes people cannot distinguish if it's the truth or not. So you get really ridiculous things in America, not to quote anything happening in Slovakia, but you had Donald Trump using Taylor Swift and AI to say that she would vote for him. And I mean, it's ridiculous, because a lot of people can actually believe that. And so this is really where I think we should focus much more in schools, not on calculating something from somewhere, but really telling the students what they need to hear to be able to live in this world. And that is, media literacy should be absolutely a compulsory subject. from the very beginning, because already children who are 8, 9 years old, they use their mobile phone, they use Google, and they cannot distinguish what is a serious link, what is something that looks suspicious. So that's something that we should really put into education. And there was one more thing, but I forgot. So.
Yes, I completely agree as well, and I would also add that people always, like most politicians, they lie and they just hide behind the freedom of speech movement, basically. And like you said, there was this story also like during our presidential election that one of the candidates will send young men to Ukraine to fight, which wasn't true because he cannot do that legally. And there was this news reporter asking older generations, and they said like, we are voting the other candidate because we don't want our men to go to Ukraine. And the reporter asked like, where did you hear that? I hear that it's true. It's basically their response to that, and that's why I think it's not that just young generation should be educated, but I would say that mostly the older, and if so, maybe European Union can have some kind of a role in that, and if you think it should be European Union's policy or something, do you think it should be that or just a country?
The European Union doesn't have the right to dictate to countries anything about education. That's something that the countries have not decided they want to deal with in common. They want to keep their competencies in the field of education to themselves. So the EU cannot, doesn't have the right to. They can propose, but they cannot tell the countries, you have to do this, you have to have media literacy. I think this is something also that is happening a lot on through NGOs and through different volunteer organizations, which actually organize these media literacy seminars, even for elderly, for retired people in different community homes. So this is again supplementing the state, because the state should probably do this, but it's still a way of helping at least that older generation. And again, for our education system, it has to be our government and the Ministry of Education who has competencies to do that. But what you can do, what everybody can do, is that we can talk to our family members. I don't know if you have any family members, but I have several who share everything on Facebook, and 99% of that is not true, and I always try to reply to them and say, this was debunked, here you can find the link to the actual information. So this is something you can do. It's not something a lot of people accept, so several of my family members have actually deleted me from their friends in Facebook when I kept doing that for a while. But still, I think that maybe there will be one or two who will think about it and say, okay, well, maybe I should think twice. So this is something you can do. You can talk to your family members, you can talk to your friends, because oftentimes we have friends who have different opinions, which is of course normal, but then they can tell you something and you know that it's not true. And instead of being quiet because you don't want to go into an argument, you can actually find the strength in yourself to go into it and to do it, or to even proactively share on your social media things like this. So beware, there is a hybrid thread like this. Please read about it, be aware. So this is something all of us can do, because I think all of us are on social media. So if we want to maybe end this topic on a positive active note, this is something maybe we can do to make the world a better place in this sense.
Yes, thank you. I would also add that we as a younger generation, we should be helping the older generation, especially like our parents, because we think like our parents are wise enough to not fall for traps like misinformation and those attacks from other sources. And it's very hard during this time, because also AI is a very big threat, and I can already see like my mom, for example, seeing something and sharing on Facebook, and like, Mom, this is not real. you have to be careful what you see, and I think it's our duty as youngsters and the active ones to help our older generations and not just family members, but our surroundings and our communities as well. And our time is up for this discussion. It went very quickly. And I would also thank you for our guests that they find the time to come to our office and discuss these topics with us. And also our guests here that are sitting, thank you for your attention. Do you have a question?
I just want to know whether we could have some things to reflect and to discuss some things regarding what you have already said. Maybe
We can have like 10 more minutes for discussion.
Yes.
For the questions from people.
Yes, if you have some questions, sure, you can
I
reflect.
just wanted to reflect on what we discussed because this is really interesting and we extended the discussion really on some topics that I hope that okay, that's working. I really hope that we could have more time to discuss about this, and I think that it would be useful also to discuss for our case in Greece, and I think that there will be similar examples in other countries as well. But for our side, I think that there are 4 main points according to what you said. The first of all is just because we talked about voting and the voting systems and why people they don't go to vote. I think we should also see what is going on the EU level, because as you said very correctly, many people do not go to vote. But I think it's also a matter of perception, because after the economic crisis breakdown and all that bad things that have been happening in Europe, many people, research has shown that it is considered to be like second-class elections, and they are using this kind of elections simply to protest or to show their disappointment for their national politics. So this is why we've seen this increase into far-right parties and all this kind of confusion that's been happening in EU politics. So there's also the need for changing the perception, and as you said very correctly, to make people understand that many parts of EU policies are being adopted also in national politics. So we're not simply voting to protest or to show our dissatisfaction. It's something different and more important. And the second part is that I wanted to move this into political parties and also the part of representation, because in our cases in Greece, many people say that political parties, no matter their orientation, are the same, or they are doing the same things. There's not something different, and that also I think links also to political leadership. We have parties in Greece that they are reclaiming past policies that they did when they were in government, and that was actually 30 or 40 years ago. So there is no currently political leaders who could inspire or attract more people, and that also leads to the frustration of people not going to vote and so on and so forth. And that also links to populist leaders who can attract more people by saying that I'm your man or I'm your woman or whatever, and I know the truth and I know everything and please follow me and so on. So it is also a responsibility from the political scene on how they could further engage people. It's not just saying and using big speeches and so on. And that also links to communication, which is the third part, because as you said, as fast as bad information can be communicated, maybe false information can be communicated, the same possibly could happen for the true information, or what is actually accurate as news. So this is something that we should be looking at and thinking about. And yeah, I also think I have another point that I forgot. So yeah, this is at least what happens in our case anyway. So thank you for sharing.
Just to contribute, Babis from Greece. Hi. It is quite interesting because now we are sharing AI develop information, and we are saying this is AI, I don't believe it. But are we reaching the point when we will have the real information and we are going to say this is AI, I don't believe it? That's also an interesting point. That is all I want to say. Thank you.
From what you said, I heard, especially from your side, all politics here are lying, and from your side, people don't trust in politics. So for me, it was kind of like a miserable situation that you presented, which I mean, which maybe it's fair. Like, I don't want to judge. But what do you expect? How do you want the people to trust the politics again, and what is the things that can be done to change the situation where we want people to trust in politics, but we want politics also to be valid?
I think what you can do is actually talk to the politicians. So, I think it's best done at the municipal level that we discussed. I have a friend who, before every municipal elections, goes through the lists, finds the candidates who live in her quarter, and actually writes to them or contacts and telephones them and says, okay, we have a river that needs cleaning, we have this and this, what are your priorities, what are you going to do if I elect you? And I think this is great, and I think if everybody did that, they would actually feel the responsibility. And this is the same thing you can do for MEPs. They all have an email address you can write to them, and you as a citizen, you should be, and you are very important to them. So if you write to them and say, okay, look, the parliament is discussing climate change in this particular, I don't know, or some consumer-related issue. What is your stance? How are you going to vote? Why are you doing that? And then write to him after the vote saying, okay, you didn't do as you promised. I think this is what needs to be done. You actually need to not just say, I trust them, I don't trust them, but actually do your work and contact them and make them see that they are directly responsible to you, because they are. You are voting for it. Look, I gave you my vote. What are you doing for me? Are you sure that you're doing all that you can? And this is what 99% people don't do. They just go and circle somebody on the list, but never actually contact them directly, or even try to see if that person is doing what they promised to do. So this is something that you can do to make them see that there is a direct relation between what they say and what then they should do.
You can go first.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I would like to just say, of course, I agree with what you just said, and also to follow on that, like, of course, it's so simply to say like everyone is lying. It's not like that, and I'm really sorry if I heard like that, like every politician lies. It's not true. There are lots of politicians, lots of political parties that base their strategy in the election campaigns on like some fabricated things that are like fake news, whatever. But there are lots of good politicians that really care about the needs of the people, about the country, about the future of the country. So of course, sometimes it's very not popular to pass some law that for people it sounds like but they will take more money from us and it will affect us like badly, but they don't think like further, like it's really needed for the country in order to like have better future, because sometimes also unpopular things have to be passed. So back to my point, it's really needed that young people and all of the people, they just care about like public affairs. They read the news. They don't just blindless following some kind of politicians. They think that the politician or party is like saying true and want for us just the best. Sometimes it's not like that, and we need to investigate. We really need to be interested in what is happening at the local level, national level, European level. Of course, like sometimes it's hard to follow up on all of the news, but a lot of people, they just gave up on politics. They gave up on what is happening out there, and of course, then it's so easy to being manipulated and to be trusting the politicians that are not right people to follow. So I would say you can start from like being interested and just look for some politicians and some parties, either national, local or European level, that really represent the values that you would like to have, and you have yourself, and you want the country to be. So there are lots of good people out there who are in politics. Of course, like it's harder, and it's becoming harder and harder to make people, especially young people, to go into politics, because it became like a battlefield for people who are like, I don't know, lots of like so-called alternative media. They are like blaming them for something that is not true, and they are coming out like some kind of, like family-related things. They are not even important for the politics, and you didn't do anything wrong, but on the other side there are so many fake news spread about your family. So I can get this. It's like harder and harder, but we cannot give up on this, and we have to really follow the right people, I would say, and care about your environment.
And Denisa didn't say that all politicians lie. I didn't say that you should trust politicians. It's not a matter of trust. It's a matter of being interested in politics and trying to see what they are doing and but always fact check them and you know what? As you get older, you'll get disappointed. You'll have somebody who you think is good, and then he turns out that he's just the same as the rest of them. But you can't give up. You always have to try to find somebody, and if not, go into politics yourself. And maybe if you find it in you. I think what I said about young people and young politicians, it's very important. If we don't get young people into politics, he'll be represented by people 50 plus, 60 plus. I mean, I have children who are 10, 12 years old. I don't understand them, so I can't imagine somebody who is 50 or 60 who understands you. I mean, you live in different worlds, you speak different languages, basically. So if you don't get people your age into politics, you'll be disappointed. So.
I just wanted to add that I think this is changing actually, about like people being a bit passive. As we mentioned before, even if you elect some kind of a party that you voted for, and they are not doing what you think they were meant to do, you are supposed to be criticizing them. Like, for example, I was at this meeting of one political party, and it was supposed to be like a discussion. And at the beginning, everything was fine, and then the people from the audience started to ask questions. And then I saw like, okay, I see it's changing, because I thought it would be like maybe more fun, like more funny questions or something like that, and people started to criticize them like a lot. And like, I voted for you, please start doing something. I don't care. And even I started to criticize them because I wanted to ask them the questions. And the thing that was very happy to see is that they actually started to do those changes. Like after 2 weeks, I saw that the things that were said at that discussion, they started to do. And I was like, okay, this makes sense. We should be more maybe criticizing even those that we like. That's how we move. So not every politician is lying. I think those that do, they are just surrounded by so many yes men's that they start to believe those lies and think they can do whatever they want. So I think the more we criticize and the more we are active, the better our lives can be. It's not just negatives, because we want the best for not just ourselves, but our entire community. And that's what I wanted to say. Like, not just lies, but we should start making change from ourselves and start to be better persons.
There's a question, Chris, I think.
Yeah, there. Okay.
I think I can find.
I was just also wondering, because you guys talk about talk a lot about like how citizens need to be more active and like have to fact check and like be involved and informed. But I was like wondering, we here are really privileged because we are interested in politics. Like, we wouldn't be sitting here and talking about it. But like the majority of people, they feel like they don't have the time, or like they don't have the energy to just come home from work and be like, oh, I don't want to like scroll through like thousands of articles trying to find the truth. and they just don't have time and energy, or they feel like they don't have time and energy, and just kind of put the news on and have like the mainstream information they can get. So I was wondering how do you reach these people? Like, you can't really expect them to fact check, to be informed like you do with people who are like already politically interested and want to know. And I thought, okay, education. Of course, it has to start early, but what do you think? Why isn't it happening? Like, what's holding you back to like implement more like political education at a younger age, or even like in schools to like develop this generation of politically interested people?
Can I start with this? I think the change should come from the people that make the laws about the education, but why would they do that if misinformation is so important to them and so useful? That's why I think they're not making those changes. Like, for example, some people just come home and they want to just quickly find information about what happened that day, and they don't want to check it. And I think those articles that are misinformation and the news outlets or websites that are putting those misinformation out, I think those should be like not completely destroyed, but financially and like fined for something if they're to put misinformation and lies out, they should be punished. And then the newspapers that actually put the truth out will come on top. And also those articles that are misinformation are mostly very negative and very hateful, and people that come back home sometimes filled with rage from work, for example, they sometimes just want to see even worse things happen. So like, okay, it's not that bad, it can be even worse. So that's maybe why some people read those articles, and that's why the misinformation is spreading so much. And as I said, misinformation is very useful to populist politicians. That's why they don't do anything with it. Some people, like now, it's funny that they aren't talking with some news reporters, for example, because they are not their news or something. But they are starting to have interviews with some newspapers that are openly like misinformation or some propaganda from other countries, and that's dangerous. That's very dangerous. That how politicians are using the misinformation as a weapon, and I don't know how we can do it. Mostly, if we just be active and maybe protest or something, but it's up to the politicians that are in power, and they are using it as a weapon. So.
To me that is the big question that we actually discussed a lot before the European elections. Like, it's easy to speak to a group of students and tell them, European Union is great, we have the euro, we can travel without passports, you can go to Erasmus, you have roaming, and but then what do you say to a 50-year-old man who spends his day in a factory, and he comes home and he just wants to have a beer and sit in front of the TV or go to the pub, and doesn't care about anything? You can't sell him Erasmus or roaming, because he doesn't even go abroad. So what do you tell these people? And I think it's through pointing out what has been done in the community or in his area, which is thanks to, let's say, the European Union. If we talk about the EU, so we can tell him, look, you have a bridge, you have a playground, you have a cycling road, thanks to the EU. Maybe in some ways, but I think the problem is that why is it so different that, let's say, in America, people are very naturally interested in politics, and in Slovakia it's not the case. Maybe it's really our history that we need to have democracy for a couple of generations before we realize its worth, or maybe it's because today everything everywhere is for free and we just are used to getting everything without trying for it. So I don't have an answer, but I think it goes back again to education and to starting at school where you actually reach all the people, because then if you go through some extra activities that are happening after school or in your free time or volunteering, that's something that doesn't affect the whole population. But if you really start early, if you start in school, if you explain democracy from the very beginning, why it's important, but what we have to do, maybe there we can get some changes. And for another part about the disinformation, I think this is something that maybe we can regulate, like through this Digital Services Act, so that we impose on providers of social networks some rules and some fines if they don't respect those rules. But again, I have a feeling that they are 2 steps ahead of us. So whatever you put into law, they already have a solution for how to go around it. So not a very positive.
It's very hard, of course, like we ourselves as individuals cannot do much, but we can also do something. And also some little change is nice, and we cannot give up on trying, even if we are individuals, if we are like representative of NGOs or like working in some institution or working for the government. Of course, like it should be coming from the up, and it should be like some law should be made, like some media literacy courses also for the general public should be like somehow spread and put in place, but it's not happening so far. But what we can do as individuals, and it has been said already, it's trying to teach our relatives when you see like somebody is believing in some disinformation and spreading it on social media, your family members, like I don't know, your schoolmates, whoever, so you can just step in and try to teach them, try to explain, of course not to argue with them, because there are of course some tactics how to do this, because they read so many disinformation, and especially those who are already in this like a bubble, like in the threat of algorithm. It's very hard because sometimes they have so many arguments, and we somehow miss the arguments because they read so many articles like that, and they are so sure about like their kind of seeing the perspective, how they see the world is just true. But we can still do something and try to like in a peaceful way just teach them and show them. Of course, we cannot expect like each person will be like fact checker and they will know like all of these tactics and different tools how to do like dig deeper and every piece of information. We don't have time, as you said, like we cannot like fact check all of the information that we are receiving every day on social media. But there are certain steps which can be like, okay, this is a red flag. When you like automatically you see it, and okay, there is no author, there is like there is no date, like there is I don't know what is this media? Like of course, like you are following some alternative media, but you have no idea like who is the owner, who are the so-called journalists they are writing there. So like these kind of red flags that you can just follow, and it's very, very easy, and it doesn't take so much time from you. So this should be like put in place. It should be like spread also from the politicians, and the government should definitely do something about it. But we can start at the ground, at the bottom, and we can do something ourselves. Because without active people, and it goes back to like active participation, of course, like not everyone will be active. It will never happen like that. Of course, like people are just either they have lack of education, or they are just tired. They don't have interest into like public affairs. But on the other side, we still need to like focus on trying, and we have to do something regarding that. So it's really, really a long journey. I would say that we cannot just say like it will never change. Like, it can change, and even little things can mean something. So I would say like let's not give up. I think even if we are not happy with current politics and current politicians, they are not gonna be there forever. And we can, like this is what makes me happy thinking about that, like there is some change coming at some point, and even like the mentality of people can change. Of course, it doesn't happen in 1 or 2 days or in 1 year, but we have to do something about that. And I would say like this is the message we should keep in mind, like don't give up, and let's try as NGO, like get involved in some NGO, or I don't know, do something when you see like there is a lack of information and lack of activity in your country.
Yes, let's just hope the change is positive.
And we have to finish it because of time, but the conversations and discussion started. It was great. Thank you very much for our guest as well, and for all of the questions from you as an audience. And thank you for attending this. I will give
Thank you. So from my side, once again, for your valuable insights and for engagement of the audience. Thank you so much for that. We can already finish our online streaming, so bye-bye our followers. And I just would like to ask you kindly to fulfill the EU survey. It will take probably 5-10 minutes. I'm going to share the link right now. Please take like 5-10 minutes to fill it out, and afterwards, of course, you're welcome to come and to enjoy catering and other stuff we can provide there. Thank you so much.